All right, Shalom, Israel, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, it's Brother Nashan, New Wine Congregation of Israel. This is another edition of Law School. We're going to be reading out of Genesis chapter 30, right? Picking out where we left off at. All right, we're going to start at verse 1, but first, let me get there in my Bible. All right, so Genesis. It's a lot going on. You got Jacob done met his wives. He's now agreed to serve another additional 7 years so that he can be from up under Laban's thumb, so to speak. All right. So interesting chapter, Genesis chapter 30. Shalom, King. All right, so let's start at verse 1. It says, and when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die. All right, so Rachel was out of line, right? Rachel was out of line. It's a lot of clues that point to, Rachel struggled a lot in her spirit, right? She struggled with a few things in her spirit. She stole her dad's idols. She kind of had a little bit of an unbelieving spirit on her. All right. Lord willing, she repented enough to get the kingdom, but she said here it says that she envied her sister because her sister was able to have children and she wasn't, right? Let's go to the book of Sirach. She envied her sister. Sirach chapter 26 and verse 6. All right. It says, but a grief of heart and sorrow is a woman that is jealous over another woman. Right. So as a sister, you don't want to be jealous over another sister, whether that's the works that a sister is doing in the ministry and the truth, whether it's the type of lifestyle she has. Maybe she got a husband that makes good money. He can provide a good living for her. Right. It's never okay for a woman to be jealous over another woman under any circumstance. It says that that is a grief of heart and sorrow, right? Whatever man is married to that woman that's jealous of another woman, he's gonna be stressed out, right? He probably won't have a lot of happy days. You understand? It says, and a scourge of the tongue which communicated with all. That type of woman probably also like to tell all her business to everybody, right? So that give you a little bit of insight on how Rachel's mindset was. The fact that she envied her sister, right? She said, "Give me children, lest I die." And words are powerful, right? Words are powerful, right? Let's get this real quick. Um, let's get this real quick. Uh, Proverbs 18 and 21, right? Oh, matter of fact, let's get another one. It's all over the place. Let's go over in here. Proverbs 18 and 21. All right. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Right. So your words are powerful. The things that you say, especially when you say things with passion, right? Especially when you say things with passion. A lot of times, what you will find is easier for you to, is for a lot of people, it's easier for them to say negative things with passion than it is for them to say positive things with passion. Like a person may scream, "I hate you," but if they tell you they love, "I love you," it'd be a whole lot less energy behind that "I love you" than that "I hate you," right? So the Bible says death and life are in the power of the tongue. Whatever you can speak things into fruition, right? Your tongue is powerful. The Bible says that we were made in God's image. Men were. You understand? So it says that as soon as the Lord gave a word, let's get that real quick. Right. Psalms 33 and 9. Psalms 33 and verse number 9. Says, for he spake and it was done, he commanded and it stood fast. Right? Let's read verse 8. It says, let all the earth fear the Lord, let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. It says, for he spake and it was done. So as soon as he spoke, things started coming into fruition, right? The elements, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and so on. Mankind, you understand? All through the words that the Lord spoke. So words are powerful. Not only do men have that power, but also women have that power as well, as we're going to see in the scripture. So let's go back to Genesis 30, right? She says, give me children or else I die. It says, and Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld thee from the fruit of the womb? He like, look, I ain't God. You know better than that. It's not up to me to make sure that you have children, right? It's not my position. I don't have that power. All I can do is lay with you, and it's up to the Most High if He want to bless us with children, right? But that also goes to show the stark contrast in the way that women thought back then and how they think today. Today, a woman for a female, it's a flex for the black woman in particular, right? The so-called black woman in particular that's in the world. It's a flex for her if she don't have children, right? She literally is boasting in the fact that she got a house, she got a car, she got a degree, she got a job, but she don't have no kids and she's 35 years old, right? Our women didn't think like that back then. You understand? We think like that now, but that's a skewed perspective, right? So Jacob was pissed off when his wife said that. You understand? Because she's putting him in the place where the Most High is. Verse 3 says, and she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. Now, let's go real quick to Genesis chapter 16. You'll see the difference between her, Rachel, and our foremother, Sarah, right? Genesis 16 and 1, it says, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, behold, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. So Sarai, at this time, her name was Sarai. She understood that that was in the power of the Most High. She said, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai, right? So she was the type. That's why Sarah is the benchmark for how our sisters should think and process the things that the Lord does in our life, the way that a wife should be. Let's get that real quick. Let's go to the book of First Peter. Let's go to the book of First Peter, chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3, and am I thinking about First Peter or Second? Yeah, First Peter 3 and verse 6. It says, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are. So righteous women are likened to the daughters of Sarah, right? Whose daughters ye are, as long as you do well. You can't be a daughter of Sarah if you're not doing well through the spirit, meaning obeying your Lord. You understand? Putting loving the most high more than you love your husband, right? It says, and are not afraid with any amazement, right? Meaning whatever comes your way, whatever type of adversity you may be dealing with, sisters deal with a lot, right? They gotta go through the trouble of bearing children, the pregnancy, morning sickness. Then if they ain't pregnant, they gotta deal with their menstrual cycle. Then they gotta deal with rearing the children all day, babies crying, making sure that the home is peaceful when their husband get home from working. The women, the sisters got a lot on them. That's why it says, and are not afraid with any amazement. Let's get it in another translation. Let's get it in the CSB, right? Verse 6. It says, you have become her children when you do what is good and do not fear any intimidation, right? And the things and the responsibilities that sisters got on them can cause fear. It could be overwhelming. A lot of sisters will say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated with just being a mom, with just being a wife, right? Because today you see something. Let's go back to Genesis real quick. It's something in common that Sarah had and Rachel had, right? Verse 2, it says, and Sarai said unto Abram, behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, right? She said, go in unto my maid. Her maid, let's get that. Let's go into tools and let's see what a maid is. What she mean, my maid. It says my maid servant, slave girl, right? It says member of the household, bond handmaid, wench, bondwoman, woman servant. So basically, she had a helper, right? Let's go to Genesis 30 real quick again. She had a helper. Genesis 30 and verse 4. It says, and she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife. So back then, it was customary for when a woman got married, she also took a handmaid with her, which was a helper, right? And if for some reason that sister couldn't have kids, herself, she would give her handmaid to her husband to bear children in her stead. In some cases, not in all cases, right? But it was a customary thing for when a woman got married, she took some help with her. Now in America, they done told the sisters that, hey, you can do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to be put on one woman, right? To be making sure that the household runs straight, to make sure that you're doing whatever your husband asks you to do in righteousness, right? It's a lot on sisters. Said with handmaid, with maids have been Edomites or both, right? Well, I mean, I don't know of any cases where it say a handmaid was a Edomite. In the case with Sarai, her handmaid was a Hamite, but I hadn't read any cases where a handmaid was an Edomite, right? But nonetheless, it's a lot on sisters to do everything on their own. You know what I'm saying? To bear the responsibility of pleasing their husbands, rearing up the children, and not having any type of help. That's a new thing in the earth, right? So Rachel couldn't bear kids. She gave her handmaid to Jacob to have kids in her stead, right? Verse 5, it says, and Bilhah conceived. So that much was of the Lord, because he stopped Rachel's womb, but he opened up Bilhah's womb and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God have judged me. Right? Soon as she had that son, she said she understood that her words carry weight. Right? Real quick, let's go to the book of Matthew. Let's go to Matthew chapter 12 and verse, I want to say it's 34. Let me go back to the KJV. Matthew 12 and verse 34. She said, God have judged me based on the things that she opened up her mouth and said. Right? It says, verse 36, it says, but I say unto you that every idle word mean every single word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. And ultimately, there's one chief day of judgment, judgment day, but the Lord could judge you any day for the things that you speak, the things that come out of your mouth. It says, for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. And Rachel understood this, right? She said, give me children unless I die. If I can't have, if I can't have kids, then I'd rather die. And the Lord said, and she as soon as her handmaid bare Jacob a son, Rachel said, God have judged me and have also heard my voice. He judging me. He gonna judge me for what I said, but he also gave me the request that I asked for. It says, and have given me a son, therefore called she his name Dan. Dan means judge, right? That's what the name Dan means, right? So it says, in Bilhah, Rachel's maid conceived again and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestling have I wrestled with my sister. and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. So that's your Chileans, right? Your Chileans and your Argentinians, right? It says verse 9. When Leah saw that she had left barren, meaning Leah realized she couldn't have any more kids, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. So now Jacob got 4 wives. It says, in Zilpah, Leah's handmaid bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop coming. And she called his name Gad. So Gad would be your on this side of the world, your North American Indians, so-called North American Indians. That Gad means troop. All right. Gad was some warriors, right? They was tearing Esau ass up with them arrows and spears. That's why they created the Gatling gun. You understand? Reuben for real though, right? Which is your Seminole Indians. They was tearing Esau them up when they was over here with them arrows, hiding in trees, popping out. That'll let you know that the American soldier been not hardly botting. They always getting towed up by some so-called untrained warriors, just like they was in Afghanistan. Them boys were popping out in sweatpants and sandals, blowing them up. Same thing over here, right? Verse 12, it says, and Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son, and Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed, and she called his name Ashar or Asher. That means Asher means happy, right? So you hear brothers or sisters say Ashar Shabbat Shalom or Ashar New Moon. That means happy new moon, right? Ashar means or Asher means happy. It says, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. What is a mandrake? Right? Let's look that up. Remember, Rachel kind of had an affinity with idols, right? Watch what a mandrake looked like. All right, it looked like, look at there, mandrake. Look a little bit like a person, right? You could easily think that that is an idol, right? Or make it into an idol. Look at those right there. Look like little people. I guess that's why they call them mandrakes, right? They look like men, right? What are mandrakes good for? Mandrake benefits. It says mandrake root does not offer safe, direct health benefits for home consumption. It's extremely toxic, but its active chemical components are highly valuable in modern prescription pharmaceuticals. So they'll say it's valuable in prescription pharmaceuticals, but at the other end, they'll say it's not safe. That's interesting. All right. Let's keep reading. It says the plant contains a lethal dose of tropane alkaloids. Using raw mandrakes is considered highly dangerous and likely unsafe. You know Esau gonna flip it, right? But they use it in their medicine though. They probably like, we don't need y'all healing yourself. I ain't telling nobody to go eat no mandrakes, but at the same time, it says these elements help treat irritable bowel syndrome, right? And severe intestinal cramping, right? So she might have been using them for her menstrual cramps. Ain't no telling, right? Say it's motion sickness and nausea relief. Say Parkinson's symptoms management, cancer therapeutics, right? So mandrakes got a lot of benefits to them. Pain relief, fertility, folklore, due to the root's distinct shape, which often resembles a human body. Ancient cultures and biblical texts like Genesis associated the plant with inducing conception and curing infertility. So that's probably why. And this is folklore, but it probably was something to do with why she wanted the mandrakes, right? So let's go back. It says, and Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, it is a small matter. Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldst thou take away my son's mandrakes also? So they fighting over Jake, right? They fighting over Jake. It says, and Rachel said, therefore, he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrake. So she like, look, it's supposed to be my night to have him. Give me the mandrakes and you can have them tonight. Right? It's my night to lay with him. You can have them tonight if you tell your son to give me the mandrakes. Right? It says, verse 16, and Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. Right? So Jacob came out the field, worked all day. It was night when he came home, in the evening when he came home. And she met him in the field, like, hey, it's time. Hey, you with me tonight. Don't even think about going in the tent with Rachel. I bought you for the night. Right? Verse 17, it says, and Yahweh hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maid unto my husband. And she called his name Issachar. Right? That's your so-called Mexicans on this side of the world. It says, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endowed me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him six sons. And she called his name Zebulun. Right? Who is Zebulun? Let me see real quick. I gotta pull it up. Zebulun is your Guatemala. That's Guatemala. Make it too big. So that's Guatemala to Panama. That's your Mayans, right? So-called ancient Mayans. They descend from the tribe of Zebulun on this side of the world. Right? Let's go back. Verse 21, it says, and afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. So Jacob had one daughter. Her name was Dinah. It says, and God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. So he remembered her, meaning he remembered everything that she said. Also, right? Verse 23, as she conceived and bare a son and said, God have taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. Right? So Joseph is where you get the tribes. Let's go back to the chart. Joseph is where you get the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, right? They split the inheritance of Joseph, which will, Lord willing, we'll get to that later on in the book of Genesis, right? Verse 25. So it says Jacob prospers, right? So 25 is a turning point. Watch this. It says, and it came to pass that when Rachel had born Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away that I may go unto mine own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. So Jacob is not content with living in another man's house, right? Let's go to the book of Sirach. Jacob is not content with living in another man's house. He like, look, I done served thee. I got wives. I got a household now, right? Let me get my wages and go, right? Sirach chapter 40, and let's start at verse 28. It says, my son, lead not a beggar's life, for it is better to die than to beg. So you never want to be in a position where you got to constantly beg, especially as a man. You understand? It's better to die than to beg. As a man, you should never want to take handouts, right? From anybody, right? Let's keep going. It says, the life of him that dependeth on another, it's a dependeth on another man's table, is not to be counted for a life. So you don't want to depend on another man going to work. You depending on him going to work, getting his check so that he can keep the lights on and you can have somewhere to stay. As a man, you should not live that type of life, right? That's not a life. It says, for he polluted himself with he polluted himself with other men's meat, but a wise man, well nurtured, will beware thereof. It says, verse 30, begging is sweet in the mouth of the shameless, but in his belly there shall burn a fire. So you don't want to live a beggar's life. It's sweet in the mouth of somebody who just don't know no damn better. They think it's okay to just, hey, bro, I can have some. Y'all gonna bring me some. You don't want to live that type of life. right? Let's go to Sirach chapter 29. Jacob didn't want to live that type of life, right? Sirach 29, and we're going to start at verse 23. It says, be it little, Lord, matter of fact, let me start. Yeah, let's start at verse 22. It says, better is the life of a poor man in a mean cottage than delicate fare in another man's house. So it's better to be poor. It's better to be, you live in the projects. Matter of fact, you could be living in a tent. It's better to be in that situation and it's yours than to be kicked up 2, 4, 5, 6 bedroom house in somebody else's house. That's not life, right? It's better to be able to be in a situation where you could call it your own because then you make the rules, you can serve the Lord. Hey, you living in somebody else's house, they can say, we ain't keeping on new moon up in here. I done been there, right? I done been there as a grown man living at my mama's house. It's not a pleasant experience, right? She's telling me, that Bible ain't real. Hey, I was like, I got to get the hell up out of here. And all praises he made a way for me to be able to do that, but you want to always be working towards getting up out of that situation, right? Different circumstances, people fall into different circumstances at different times, right? Life happens, life be life, and sometimes you might not be able to get yourself where you're trying to go right when you're trying to get there, but you always want to be trying to better yourself and get yourself in a better situation, right? Let's keep going. Verse 23. It says, be it little or much, hold thee contented. Meaning, whether you got a lot or a little, be content with what you got, that thou hear not the reproach of thy house. Right? Keep going. It says, for it is a miserable life to go from house to house. And I've been there, right? Living out of a suitcase. You can't never really unpack because you don't know when it's time to go. That's a miserable life. This is for where there are a stranger, thou darest not open thy mouth, meaning you can't really call no shots in nobody else's house. They come, hey, I want the TV off at 7:30. You got to cut the TV off, right? All right, I need to grab whatever that person asks you to do. You can't reply upon them because it's not your house, right? Let's keep going. It says, thou shalt entertain and feast and have no thanks, meaning you'll be doing all the work. Hey, I'm getting ready. My brother coming into town. I need you to barbecue these ribs. And they ain't gonna thank you. They don't gotta thank you because they letting you live here. It says, moreover, thou shalt hear bitter words. You ain't done, hey, when you ain't gonna wash the clothes, they gonna be getting on you. They always gonna have something to say to you. Right? Let's keep going. It says, come thou stranger and furnish a table and feed me that thou hast ready. This is what the person who you live with will be telling you. Come over here and get the table ready. Set the table and feed me what you done cook. Verse 27, give place, thou stranger, meaning you, hey, move out the way to an honorable man. Hey, this brother got a job. This brother got his own place. It says, my brother coming to be lodged, and I have need of my, hey, I need you to Thursday, I need you to be gone from the house from Thursday to Sunday. And you just got to be out here and figure it out, right? You don't want to live that type of life, man. That's a miserable life. Let's keep going. Verse 28, it says, these things are grievous to a man of understanding, right? The upbraiding of house room and the reproaching of the lender, right? So it's grievous to a person who really understand, but somebody that's lazy, that don't got no understanding, they'll just be content and stay in that situation, right? So that's not Jacob, right? Let's go back to Genesis 30. Jacob said this in 26. He says, give me my wives and my children for whom I have served thee, and let me go. Jake was ready to go. For thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry. So Jake was working and doing such a good job. Laban didn't even want him to leave. He didn't even want him to leave because Laban's business and enterprises were thriving as long as Jacob was working there. Some people want to keep you under them. They don't want to see you grow, right? They rather see you steady, make them look good or make them look better, right? They'll withhold certain things from you. Like he said, you withheld my wages from you, been changing my wages, right? They'll keep it so that you never are able to develop and prosper so that you can become and reach your full potential. right? He says, "For I have learned by my experience that the Lord have blessed me for thy sake." And he said, "Appoint me thy wages, and I will give." He like, look, the Lord blessing me long as you here. If it's money you want, tell me what you name your price, and I'm gonna give it to you. Right? Verse 30, 29. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased into a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when shall I provide for mine own house? Also, so Jake, like, look, man, I know you know I've been making your stuff prosper. All praises to the Most High. He like, but look, I can't keep making you rich. I gotta make myself rich, right? Verse 31. It says, and he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything. So he like, look, I don't want a handout. He like, don't give me anything. If thou will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So you like, look, don't give me nothing. I don't work for you, so really I'm gonna get what I think I supposed to be owed. Let me go through your flock, and I'm gonna get the spotted and speckled sheep and the spotted and speckled goat, and that'll be my reimbursement for everything that I've done. Right, verse 33, it says, So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, Behold, it would be I would it might be according to thy word. So LeBron, like, that's a great deal. Why? Because you don't normally ever see a spotted speckled sheep. It's usually white, right? At the oddest, it might be black, right? But you don't never see a brown or a spotted speckled sheep or a goat like that. You might see a speckled goat. A brown and white goat. I done seen a black and white goat before. But most of the time with the sheep, they usually gonna be solid in their color, right? So LeBron like, oh, that's a lick. Oh, this nigga don't know no better. I'm finna have him working here forever. So he like, okay, deal. Verse 35 says, and he removed that day the he goats that were ring straight and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and everyone that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Right? It says, and he set 3 days journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rod. So I found this pretty interesting, right? I went to looking up green poplar and hazelnut and chestnut tree benefits. So let me pull that up. Green poplar. Right. So what you'll see with green poplar uh benefits, a lot of it has to do with inflammatory benefits and pain reliever, skin soother, fever reducer, right? But for some reason, this is fast growing, highly adaptable, deciduous tree prized for shelter beds, privacy screen. Nah, they didn't have none of this when I was looking it up the first time. I ain't see none of this when I looked it up. It said absorb their roots act as green filters that absorb toxic particles and groundwater pollutants. Right, okay, right here. So it says pain relief. The buds and bark contain salicin, a natural precursor to aspirin, used to reduce inflammation and pain. It says skin health, respiratory support, right? It soothes sore throats, right? So there are a lot of benefits to these things, this concoction that Jacob made so that these animals would conceive. Now, none of it, when I looked it up, let's go to Hazel. None of it, when I looked it up, said anything about being like an aphrodisiac or anything like that. Hazel and chestnut. Right? So hazel and chestnut, what I saw about it, it was that it was an astringent, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It says together they tighten tissue and support circulatory health. Right? So heart health, brain function, skin care, digestive health, cell protection, weight management, immune system benefits, blood sugar, gut health, heart healthy minerals, right? So it's good for you. They got a look per ounce to a gram chart right here. Right. So Jacob had knowledge of all this stuff, right? Let's go to the book of wisdom of Solomon. Matter of fact, let's go to Sirach first. Jacob had knowledge of all this stuff. Sirach chapter 1 and verse number 9. Who gave him this knowledge? Right? It says Sirach 1 and verse. That's not what I want. Matter of fact, let me look it up. Sirach 1 and 19. Salaki wrote down a wrong precept. Right? So it says, wisdom reigneth down skill and knowledge, right? It says of understanding and exalted them to honor that hold her fast. So that's Jake. The Lord, Jake said, look, if you will be with me, I'm gonna worship you, talking to the Most High. And he said the Lord gave him wisdom. It says wisdom, when you got wisdom, it raineth down skill and knowledge. It so anytime anything that you're trying to understand or know better, the first thing you got to do is seek the Lord and get the fear of the Lord. And the Most High can make you to understand whatever He wants you to understand. Right? Let me get this in Matthew. I want to say. All right. Right. Luke 24 and 45. It says, then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. Right. So this is dealing with Yahweh Shai and the disciples. But at the same time, it lets you know that the Most High can open or close your understanding, whether it's about something that you're trying to learn for a business you're trying to start. Right. I know for sure there have been many things that the Most High has gave me understanding on, things that I was able to pick up quick that I had never done before. Right. I could, if I tell y'all, list of the jobs that I done had, uh, man, I had some jobs where I had to do like crash college type courses and learn the information for the job. And there's no way that I could learn that information except it was the Most High giving me the understanding and the ability to retain that knowledge. Right. So it's the same thing with anything. Right. It's the same thing. Why, Jake, let's go back to Genesis 30. Let's see what happened. So it says, verse 37, it says, and Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of hazel and chestnut tree and peeled white strakes in them, meaning he peeled the bark back until it showed the white, the inside part, and made the white appear, which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth cattle ring straight, speckled, and spotted. So he made them breed. He put together something. Now they saying it's got all these benefits, like it's an astringent, it's anti-inflammatory, gut, skin health. Yeah, that's probably true. But the Lord showed Jacob something that Esau can't see today. Right? Let's go real quick. The wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon. Matter of fact. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9. And I'm gonna start at verse 17. The Lord opened up this man understanding so that he was able to make these animals breed in a way that so that it would produce the same type of offspring so that he would become rich. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9, and in verse 17, it says, and thy counsel who have known, except thy give wisdom. Matter of fact, let me start at verse 16. It says, and hardly do we get so right at the things that are upon the earth. That's Esau trying to guess when he say, oh, and it's an astringent. Oh, it's a precursor to aspirin, right? It says, and with labor do we find the things that are before us, but the things that are in the heaven who have searched out. And thy counsel have known, except thou give wisdom and send thy Holy Spirit from above. For so the ways of them which lived on the earth were reformed, and men were taught the things that are pleasing unto thee, and were saved through wisdom, right? And that's how Jake was able to save his household to get out from up under Laban, right? The Most High put it on his spirit to put these tree barks together so that these animals would breed, right? Verse 40, it says, and Jacob did separate the lambs and set the face of the flocks toward the ring straight, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. Man, that's wisdom straight from the Lord. It says, but when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's and the stronger were Jacob's, right? It says, and the man increased exceedingly and had much cattle and maid servants and men servants and camels and ass. So the Lord made them get rich over a little bit of time, right? Let's get that in Sirach. Let's go to Sirach chapter 11 and verse 21. One of the things that the Lord can do fast is make you rich. That's a light thing for the Lord to make a poor man rich, right? Let's read this. It says, marvel not at the works of sinners, but trust the Lord and abide in thy labor, meaning keep doing your job. You keep doing what you know you're supposed to do. Don't look at the sinner and see how they getting over, they finessing their own people and say, man, that's what I'm finna do. No, don't do that. It said, abide in thy labor. It says, for it is an easy thing in the sight of the Lord on the sudden to make a poor man rich. The man, that's easy. That's easy for the Lord. Oh, what, you want some money? Some of y'all are praying for money, man. You might not be getting it because you might be asking amiss, the consumer upon your lust. The Lord said that's a light thing for him, right? Let's get that in the book of John. Let's go to John chapter 14. The Lord said that is a light thing, right? John 14. Let's get the KJV. Right? Verse 14. It says, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. That's plain. The Lord is not a man that he should lie. Right? He said, whatever you ask, let's go. Verse 13. It says, and whatever so you shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified. But you got to be doing it to glorify the Father. Why you want that money? You want it so you can get a Hellcat? So you can get more attention? So you get some YouTube followers? Or you trying to get more money so you can get you a car so you can go get a job so you can support the brothers that you know that need help so that you can get on? What you want a lot of money for it, right? Are you asking amiss so that you can consume it upon your lust? These are the type of things that we got to ask ourselves. And we got to be honest with ourselves. Because the Lord say it's an easy thing to make you poor, go from poor to rich overnight. He can do that, right? And I got some stories, man, I could tell, man, but I ain't gonna do it for the sake of time, right? But most high willing, you got some out of the class. All honor and glory and praise to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, it's Brother Nashan, New Wine Congregation.